Hi, my name is Sheena Peril, and welcome to Spooky Stitches, the podcast that is 50% wool and 50% ectoplasm. My name is Sheena Peril, and I'm the author of 11 books, which you can find linked down below. And I have been monogamous in my crafting. So just to catch up a little bit, I am still between assignments, which explains why I've been filming a lot lately. You might have seen several videos go up lately. I did a writing vlog. I'm working on a sewing video. I just need to get my finished object photos for that. And I'm basically just trying to stay busy, apply for jobs, and not have a panic attack. I have been writing on my nonfiction project lately, which has been quite fun. I sent it to another author friend to review, make sure I didn't forget anything. And then that will be going up October 1st. That is the third part of the publishing roadmap series that I've been working on. Or the author roadmap is the series name, and then the publishing roadmap is this volume in it. And it's basically just an overview of the different paths that you can take to publication and how they work. I don't go into everything, especially with technology, because it changes so frequently, but I have linked to resources that can help you do your own research. And then there's other information like reading contracts and things to look out for, and what the difference between indie and self-publishing is, and what hybrid publishing is, and things that you should definitely have regardless of what your publication path is. So that's going up October 1st. That's going into my Gumroad shop only. It won't be on Amazon. And then the two previous books, which are about writing in general and then writing for NaNoWriMo, those are already up in Gumroad, and then on December 1st, I'll be releasing a sort of omnibus edition that is all three together, and then that will be released on Amazon, and each of them involves like worksheets and resources and stuff to help you plan for your own writing journey. So I do have 3 FOs this time around. The first one I'll go ahead and show you. I did insert pictures into the last podcast that was audio only, but let me just show you sort of like in the wild what it looks like. So this is the bag that I was making, and I didn't attach the button loop very well at the top, so I'm currently using a hair tie to keep it closed. But it is all crocheted. It's got a pocket here for my phone and my mask, and then everything inside, and then there's also a lining on the bottom to help keep things from falling out. And then the straps, it can either be worn as a backpack, or it can pull one of the straps out and it becomes a crossbody bag. So I have been using this a lot. I think I'm actually going to swap it out just for the remainder of the summer, just because it's been so warm. But I will definitely be using this once we get closer to fall. And for that one, I just used the unknown cone of yarn that I got from the thrift store. And then the gray yarn that I had to add on with, that's just JoAnn Big Twist. It's an acrylic yarn that was on clearance for like $2.50 a ball. So I just needed that to finish up a few little pieces to it. The next 2 things that I finished were both sewing projects, and they're a little bit large for this screen. So what I'm going to do is insert some photos. One of them is a Disney bounding dress for Lilo & Stitch that I've been working on. That is the sewing vlog that's going to go up soon. And like I said, I'm just waiting to get finished object photos for it at this point. But what I did is I thrift flipped a dress that was like a size 2. It was originally handmade, but it just wasn't done very well. And it didn't fit me, obviously. So I thrift flipped it and made it into a slightly different style And I did have to compromise on the straps and the neckline a little bit, but I'm fine with that. I'm so heat intolerant that in the summer I always wear like tank tops and spaghetti straps anyway. And then if I go into a place with air conditioning, I just layer over it. I can't stand heat. And we're planning on going to Disney next year or possibly the year after. So this will be perfect for going down to Southern California. And then the second thing that I made is again, a thrift flip. It's a circle skirt originally made from, it's either a cotton or a linen. I'm not entirely certain which. I should probably go burn my scraps to figure it out. It's a tablecloth, and I just cut out the center to make a circle skirt. And then I used a 2-inch wide grosgrain ribbon and used that as the casing for the waistband, put some elastic in it. And the way I did the casing, I originally made it so that it could be a drawstring. Well, not really a drawstring, but like a tie, so that I could cinch it up a little bit if I needed to. And then I can either tie it with a bow in the back, or I can tuck the ribbons in without the bow and just have like a smooth skirt. And it came out perfectly and I love it. I've already worn it a couple of times, so that is great. And it gave me the idea, because of the shade of blue that it is, of I've already got a Lilo Disney bound. What if I did a Stitch Disney bound? Because Stitch is the one that I identify with. I mean, Chaos Gremlin, it's me. So I am seriously thinking about making a top and like a bolero to go with it, but I haven't decided on the style yet. And the color of the skirt is a very difficult shade of blue to match. It's sort of like a robin's egg blue. It's got a little bit of like green and gray undertones to it. And I had a horrible time finding thread that would blend in with it. And so I'm still thinking about that one. I may make just like a totally different skirt if I do a Stitch Disney bound, but it's kind of a jumping off point for me. I'm gonna think about it. Now on to my whips. I've finished a lot of the stuff that I was working on, which was the sewing. I know there's like a pilot shortage and all these canceled flights, but we still have them constantly. Anyway, so I finished the sewing whips that I was working on and the bag. I haven't been working on the vest or the cardigan very much lately because I have been focused on a project with a deadline. So this is something that I'm making for Ash. And Ash, if you are watching, you need to stop right now. Go away, go do something else for like 2 minutes and then come back. So this is Unique Sheep Green Sheep Cotton Bamboo. It is a custom die that I had done specifically for Ash, because it's hard to find die patterns like this in non-woolly yarn, and she's allergic to wool. So this is one of their normal colorways and one of their normal bases, but they don't typically come together. So I asked them to dye it up, and they did, and they were very lovely about it. And then this gray right here is just some number 10 crochet cotton from JoAnn's that I used because I needed more yarn and I couldn't get more of this in time. And I don't have money because I'm unemployed. Anyway, so if you're a knitter, you can probably take a guess at what this is. If you're not, then like Ash, you're going to have to wait until it's done to find out. Any guesses? But this is her wedding present because we are getting married on October 1st. And before anybody gets super excited about, like, I said the W word, we are a platonic partnership. We're having a very small informal gathering with like 10 people total, and it's fine, we're still celebrating and everything, but don't like picture a big to-do with like DJs and caterers and fancy white dresses that cost as much as a car, because that's not happening. My dress cost $30 and I got it from Torrid. So calm your tits. Anyway, so this is the main thing I've been working on. I started it a couple weeks ago. I am about halfway done, at least by volume of yarn. I'm basically knitting until I run out of yarn, and then we're gonna have to call it done because that's all she wrote. And those are the only clues you're getting. So that's the main project that I've been working on. I also have gotten back to work on the Eleonora project. It's been a while since we've seen this one, and it's going to continue to be rather boring because I'm working on the 12 inches of leg that need to be done. So we're going to be here a while. But as you can see, I did finally get my circular needles that I've been trying to get for 6 weeks. These are really great. They just make it so much easier to work. You can see I've already bent them just a little bit, and I did an Instagram reel when they came, just kind of comparing the DPNs to the circular needles, and the DPNs 100% will puncture skin and have in the past. These have a slightly duller point that makes them safer to use for me, because I'm the type of person who pushes down on my needle with my index finger when I knit. And the rounded tip also makes it a lot easier to knit without splitting the yarn, because I am using silk yarn and it's held doubled. So it just makes it so much easier. I'm making fewer mistakes. I'm not dropping stitches. I'm not stabbing myself. So it's just a lot easier to use. And I am so happy I found these needles. I didn't even think that they made US 000 needles in circulars. I'm so glad that I found them. I should put this down so I can talk. It still takes a lot of my attention just because it is such a fine gauge, but it has made it a lot easier to work on, and it's easier for me to work on it while like watching TV or something now, which before it was something that I really had to pay attention to because there were pointy little daggers coming off of my sock. So those are the main things that I have been working on, just those 2 projects. Probably today or tomorrow I'm going to go through my bin of whips, sewing whips, and figure out what my next project for another sewing vlog is going to be. I have been interviewing for jobs, at least online. Like, for some reason it's a thing now that they send you text interviews via AI that you complete on your phone, which I hate. But okay, if you're interested in talking to me, I'll do it. So I'm hoping that I will have a new job here in a couple of weeks, but I was also hoping for that like a year ago, so we'll see. Fingers crossed. One thing that I've been doing more is trying to set aside time for reading. And actually I need to read today because I didn't read the last 2 days. And I'm trying to like sit down and just spend 15 minutes reading, and it feels like a relief to sit down and read because I haven't done it in so long. I haven't been able to do it. Like, I'll sit down and I just can't concentrate. I can't get into the book. And I'm finally starting to be able to do that again. So currently I am reading Well Met by Jen DeLuca. I'm only a couple chapters into that. It's a Renaissance fair themed romantic comedy, which I love. I can already see where it's going, but I love Ren fairs. I have not been to enough of them, and I found out that I'm basically missing our local one this year just because we don't have the money to go, because I lost my job and we're still trying to figure out how we pay rent this month. So I missed out on our local Ren fair, so I'm reading about one instead. And then I'm also reading a Nancy Drew novel called The Haunted Showboat. Nancy Drew is one of the reasons why I became a writer. It's the main reason why I write mystery novels. So it's been nice to get kind of back to my roots. And my brain is very harshly critiquing this particular book because it's one of the later editions. So it's a different ghostwriter than the Caroline Keene that I'm used to. This one was written in 1957, and I'm used to the books from the 30s. And I'm a little bit annoyed, but we're letting it pass, and I'm trying to critique it as a writer and think about what I would do differently and how to improve it. I'm also reading It Happened in Seattle, which is a nonfiction book, and it's just kind of like helping me learn more about my adopted city in this area because I came out here knowing very little about it, and I'm trying to learn more. Ohio was a big part of my writing, and the history there really influenced the stories that I wrote, and so I'm trying to learn more about that here. That was awkward. Someone was walking by my window, which is open as I'm filming because it's hot. And I just didn't want anyone to hear me. Podcaster problems. As far as what I'm watching, I have been getting into a K-drama called Rookie Historian Guhae Rung. I'm sorry, I don't speak Korean. I'm trying to learn, but the pronunciation is really hard for me, so I apologize if I mispronounced her name. It is really good, and it's about this young woman who works as a reader. So she goes around to the different fancy houses and reads to the noble ladies, and everyone is obsessed with this romance novel by someone named Mewa. And she hates the book and keeps critiquing it and telling them how horrible it is. And then she gets confused for the author, who turns out to be a prince. So it's very funny. I don't know how historically accurate it is because I know very little about Korea from this time period. I think it's somewhere between like 1830 and 1850, I think. I'm not positive, but it has been very enjoyable. It's very funny and very sweet as well. And then just what I'm playing right now, I am in Stardew Valley and kind of going in head first and not coming up for air for a while. I just have not wanted to play anything else lately. It's just very relaxing for me. And that is where my brain lives now. Okay, so let's move on to some knit tea. On September 11th, Canada's Great Northwest Fiber Fest has been announced, but only limited details are available at the time I was doing my research. You can continue to check their website for details, which will be linked down in the show notes below. On October 28th to November 2nd, 2022, Oh So Pretty and Clever is hosting a 5-night crochet retreat in Tuscany, which sounds amazing. It will include tours of the area. Guys, I studied in Florence, so I know this area pretty well, and you're gonna love it. I'm not sure what all is on the docket, but I really hope that you get to spend some time in Prato and Pisa because those are also textile-based economies like Florence was. And both of these cities are just amazing. Anyway, you can find out more about it in the link in the description. Also, I want to make a note, I've been seeing a ton of events on Ravelry for Germany or German-speaking areas. and I don't speak German, so I can't really tell you anything about them. But if you're in that region, do make sure that you are checking out the events on Ravelry. There's a whole calendar up there, and it's either like German or a Germanic language. It's something Eastern Central European, something like that. I don't know what it is. And then lastly, there is an ongoing Knit Orange and Crochet Orange thread in the Needlework News and Events board on Ravelry. Crafters are encouraged to use all shades of orange yarn, but especially huntery orange, to protest gun violence in the US and to wear or use their items at in-person protests or by posting them online. This is a tragic epidemic in our country right now, and we have to do something about it. Right now, we need to vote and make ourselves visible and show the world and our government that we disagree with the way things are going. If you have an event like a museum show or something else, fiber festival, you want me to share, please just drop me a line and I would be happy to add it into the Knit Tea segment. I'm also now posting Knit Tea over on my blog once a month, so that way you will have a resource that you can go to where it's just like a static page. And now I think that it is time to cozy up, turn down the lights, grab a kitty or your craft of choice, and we're going to pull a story from Patreon. I ran a vote and you guys spoke. So today we are reading the second episode of Midnight Radio. So tune in and let's get started. Midnight Radio, Episode 2, Midnight Radio. I counted houses as I coasted down Rowan Avenue. The white, square houses all looked alike except for the cars parked out front or the variety of flowers in the yard. They were the not-so-distant remnants of when Cole Harbor had been a company town. Coal dust clung to the white paint, giving everything a grayish haze. Nothing stayed white in Cole Harbor for very long. Even my socks were smudged with it, straight from the laundry. At last I spotted number 36 and the telltale blue and white Bel Air parked on the street. The driveway was full of automotive parts, including what I assume could only one day be a car, but was currently a chassis, wheels, and an engine with a steering column poking up. On the ground under the chassis was a body. The legs wiggled, and I heard cursing from under the engine, so I assumed the person was alive and hadn't been crushed by the vehicle. I rang the bell on my bicycle as I pulled off the street and into the yard. His greasy face poked out from under the car, wearing a surprised expression. "Lily, what are you doing here?" I left my bike on the grass and went to crouch beside the car. "I wanted to talk to you about the other night," I said nervously. I'd tried to practice what I wanted to say, but how do you tell a near-perfect stranger, "I think we saw a ghost"? Brad pushed himself out from under the engine and sat up, wiping his hands off on a dirty handkerchief. He didn't look at me. "What about it? I can't imagine you're here for a second date," he said with a forced laugh. "No," I said quickly. "I wanted to ask you about what happened." I took a deep breath. "You said she was dead." "What?" He scrambled to his feet and went to the garage, still not looking at me. I hurried after him. "When we pulled over for that woman, I said we should help her, but you said she was dead. How did you know?" "I don't know, I just said it." "Did you see her picture in the paper?" He snorted. "I don't read the paper." "Then how did you know?" I pressed. He shrugged. "It reminded me of this radio program I heard." "Of course." "Midnight Radio?" I asked slowly. His head shot up in surprise, and he looked at me for the first time. "Yeah, how did you know?" "I remember that episode now, about the couple who picks up a hitchhiker, but she disappears." I reached into my pocket, pulling out a small clutch bag I'd found in the creek, and held it out. "I found her car yesterday." Looking as though I'd offered him a dead rat, Brad reached out a shaking hand for the bag, then drew back at the last second. Well, her car went over the edge. I guess it's not surprising. I guess it's just lucky the creek is so high right now. Otherwise, the fall would have killed her. You're not listening, I said impatiently as he continued to fiddle with different tools around the garage. I followed him in a circuit from workbench to toolbox and back to the car. She's Maria Hannity. She and her son have been missing since 1943. They've been in the creek next to my house since I was 5 years old. At this, he finally stopped and crouched, ready to crawl back under the car. He turned to look at me, and I got down beside him on the gravel. I don't have any explanation, he said at last. It was just a creepy story. My brother gave me his old crystal set when he went to college. I don't sleep well, so I listen to it at night. I never thought any of those weird stories would be real. I know, I don't even remember how I started listening. I used to sneak out of bed and into the living room at night to listen, and Mom would find me sleeping on the floor in the morning. I've never even met anyone else who even knows what midnight radio is. My parents thought I was making it up. Not a lot of night owls in this town. They roll up the sidewalks at 5 o'clock. Well, he was right there. The mines ran 24 hours, and the canteen was open at all hours. But downtown, not so much. The local radio station stopped broadcasting at 9 p.m., and our single traffic light even stopped working after 10, and would just blink until 5 o'clock when the morning shift went in. I lay in bed with my little portable radio. It had taken 3 years of miserable babysitting jobs and a summer washing dishes in the diner to earn enough for it, but I finally had a radio of my very own. No more sneaking out, risking waking up my parents or falling asleep on the floor. The clock face ticked onto midnight exactly, and I turned it on, keeping the volume as low as possible, turning the knob until I heard the familiar, deep voice of the host. Welcome to Midnight Radio, your home for the spooky, creepy, and all things paranormal. We have an especially chilling story for you tonight, but first we invite you to send your own stories for our program. If you have a ghostly encounter you'd like to share, send it to 331 County Road 47, Coleman Gorge, West Virginia. I shot bolt upright in bed. Midnight Radio was local? I'd never realized. The signal was always so poor, so hard to find, I thought. I grabbed a notebook and a pen from my desk and scribbled down the address before I forgot. Cole Harbor was rural and covered a large territory not actually part of the downtown proper. Even though my house was only a few yards from Coleman Gorge, it was miles from the town of Coleman Gorge. But County Road 47 wasn't far. Where was number 331? My head spun as I lay back down, only half listening to the tale of a mysterious haunted house that vanished when the main character went back to investigate. But the soothing voice of the narrator put me to sleep before I even got to hear the ending. The next day at school, I elbowed my way through the hall to find Brad at his locker, talking to the other football players. I need to talk to you, I said. He looked at me like I was the creature under the bed who had just popped up and informed him that we needed to discuss his missing socks. His friends chuckled and wolf whistled, apparently still believing our date on Friday night had gone far better than it actually did, and Brad hadn't turned tail and fled, leaving me with a ghost's sensible green pump in my hand. What is it?" he asked when they were gone. I held out the slip of paper where I'd written down the address. "Did you listen last night? They gave an address. They've never done that before." So I've been listening for years, and they've never done that, and they're local. I looked up the address during my free period this morning, and it's only a few miles from here. I still don't understand what that has to do with me. Friday night was weird, okay, but that's just it. It's just a radio show. I sighed, dropping my hand, mind spinning as I tried to regroup and find another excuse since the obvious wasn't doing the trick. I want to write an article about it for the school paper. It's a small town. Do you know what it could mean to show people that we have more opportunities than just working in the mines or running the coal ships? He shrugged, already dismissing me as he wove his way through the crowded hall. Okay, but what does that have to do with me? You have a car. I don't. My car is currently in about 5 million pieces. You have access to a car, I amended. And it's too far for me to go by bicycle, not with the weather we've been having. He sighed, stopping to look at me, his lips twisted into something between a thoughtful grimace and exasperation. An hour, that's all I'm asking. An hour and a half, tops. Raking his fingers through his light brown hair, he finally gave in. Fine, but I have to be back by 5. My dad's on the night shift tonight. Great, thank you. This time when I smiled at him, it was genuine, and not just because my mother kept telling me I needed to smile more. We walked to his house after school, and Brad asked to take the car. His mother looked at me suspiciously. Where are you going? She asked. I'm on the school paper. I'm doing a story about a local radio station, and Brad is driving me, I said, trying to smile and do the things adults like to see. The school paper? Mrs. Clayton raised an eyebrow, but smiled. Wonderful. You must be an excellent writer. I started to object. The bar in Cole Harbor was pretty low, but Brad jumped in. She is. She wrote a really good short story for English class a while ago. So can we take the car? Mr. Clayton looked up from his newspaper and coffee. Even though it was 3 o'clock, he looked like he had just rolled out of bed and was just drinking his first cup. It was a familiar sight from my own dad working the overnight shift. I suppose just make sure to be back by 5. I know, Brad said quickly, scooping up the keys and practically running out the front door. I had to jog to catch up with him. He already had the engine running by the time I got into the car. What was that about? I asked. He was pulling away from the curb as soon as my door shut. Brad hunched over the wheel, turning around at the end of the street and speeding back toward Coleman Gorge. My parents really want me to go to college. They think if I date a smart girl, my grades will pick up. I blinked. I thought you were already a pretty good student, at least compared to the rest of the football team. Nah, my brother Kenny, he's studying to be a lawyer. My dad wants me to go to law school too. Wants me to get a football scholarship. Aren't you good at football? This conversation was getting more and more confusing. Okay, I guess. It's fun, but I'm not great at it. Mrs. Watson says I need to bring my grades up next year if I even want to apply. Mrs. Watson is a harpy, I said flatly. My one interaction with our school counselor had not gone well, and I'd avoided her office ever since. Brad snorted, smiling for the first time. He leaned back in his seat and glanced at me out of the corner of his eye. She keeps telling me I'm not applying myself, but school is just really hard sometimes, especially English. English and history were my best subjects. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. Oh, so that's why you asked me out. Your parents think if you have a girlfriend, you'll have a built-in tutor. I guess. Are you mad? I had to think about it. I'm not sure. The number of times people have asked me to do their homework for them, but I think when you asked me out, I was more confused than anything else. Are you always this honest? Usually. It tends to make people mad, though. Sometimes I do it just to annoy them. He laughed, and I smiled. You know, if you need help in English, I don't need to be your girlfriend to help you study. I appreciate that. Now, where did you say this place was? I pulled out my notebook where I'd written down the address. Number 331. We passed 328 ages ago. I think it's supposed to be on this side, I said, pointing to the right. On either side of the road were thick woods, blocking the view of everything. Wait, do you see that? Brad pointed. Is that an antenna? I think so. We drove a little further. On the left, the trees gave way to rocks, and then the side of a cliff as we climbed higher up the mountain. On the right, between trunks, I caught glimpses of Cole Harbor, the creek, the river, and the big lake a few miles from town. I'm glad I didn't try to cycle this. I don't think I could have gotten up that hill, I said. Stop, I think you just passed it. Brad looked around, putting the car in reverse and backing up several yards to a mostly overgrown gravel road and turned off. We bounced along through the trees until we reached a chain-link fence and then stopped. We got out of the car and looked around. The fence was chained shut. Brad tugged on the rusty lock, but it wouldn't budge. You're sure this is the place? He asked. I'm sure, I said in confusion, checking the address against the big wood mailbox next to the gate. 331 County Road 47. Inside the fence was knee-high grass and a dilapidated brick building. It was only one story with a flat roof and the big antenna behind it. The windows were boarded up and covered in cobwebs. "Let me see," Brad said, taking the address and my hand-drawn map. I walked along the fence, trying to get a better look. A faded sign read SPKZ, Midnight Radio. "This is definitely the place. Look, that's the call sign." "This must be an old location. No one's been here in years." He gave the rusty lock another tug, but it didn't budge. It had clearly weathered in place. The chains had even rusted together in places. I lifted the lid on the mailbox. Empty. I let the lid fall shut. "But you heard it. It was on the show last night. They said to write in with stories of the paranormal." "I don't know, Lily. I don't know what's going on here." He shivered despite his Letterman sweater. From somewhere deep in the woods came a long, low growl which turned into the sharpest, most hair-raising howl I'd ever heard in my life. I backed toward the car. Brad grabbed my arm, turning me back to the passenger side. "Come on, we're getting out of here," he said quickly. The tires spat gravel at the locked gate as he floored it backward down the driveway and onto County Road 47, driving 80 miles an hour all the way back to town. So that was episode 2 of Midnight Radio. You can check out additional episodes over on Patreon. It is currently a Patreon exclusive, and I am going to have a downloadable version available for patrons once the full story is up. So stay tuned, there is more to come in the adventures of Brad and Lily. Now it's time for me to sign off as well, but I hope that you all stay healthy, stay safe, and have something cute and fluffy to snuggle with. Ciao.